The rain hammered the tarmac at Madrid-Barajas airport like 1,000 tiny accusations, mirroring the storm raging inside Gianna's chest as the security officer's voice cut through the terminal din. "No, you cannot board. Not like that." Valentina's hand slipped from hers, slick with sudden sweat, and in that instant, the world narrowed to the glint of the officer's badge and the way her girlfriend's eyes, those deep hazel pools that had promised forever just hours ago, now flickered with the first crack of doubt. Gianna had always known she was different, the kind of different that made high school hallways part like the Red Sea. Short-cropped hair dyed electric blue at the tips, combat boots scuffed from protests she'd never actually attended, and a rainbow pin on her backpack that screamed louder than any slogan. But here in the sterile limbo of an international terminal, different wasn't a badge of honor. It was a barrier, a reason to be pulled aside, questioned, denied. "It's the attire," the officer repeated in accented English, his gaze lingering too long on the subtle pride bracelet circling Valentina's wrist, the one Gianna had braided from yarn scraps during their first sleepover. "And the behavior. We have protocols for unaccompanied minors who appear unconventional." Valentina at 19 wasn't a minor, but the word hung in the air like a guillotine. They were both just shy of 20, fresh out of a gap year backpacking through Europe on scholarships scraped together from odd jobs and parental guilt. Gianna's mom, Elena, had warned her. "Spain's beautiful, Mija, but the world's not always kind to girls like us." Girls like us. The phrase had always tasted like both armor and apology. Now, as the officer gestured for backup, two more uniforms materializing from the crowd, Gianna felt the armor crack. It had started as the perfect escape. Back in their tiny apartment in Seattle's Capitol Hill, where rainbow flags fluttered from every balcony and queer kids like them could hold hands without a second glance, life had grown suffocating. Gianna's dad had left when she was 12, citing irreconcilable differences that everyone knew meant he couldn't handle a daughter who preferred overalls to dresses and crushes on the girls' soccer team captain. Valentina's family was the opposite. Picture-perfect suburbia in Bellevue, with a mom who baked lavender scones and a dad who coached Little League, but whispers behind closed doors about phases and prayers. They'd met at a youth poetry slam, Gianna spitting fire about identity and loss, Valentina reciting sonnets about hidden gardens. One kiss under the stage lights and the world bloomed. Europe was their rebellion, their proof that love didn't need permission. From the sun-drenched vineyards of Tuscany to the misty fjords of Norway, they'd mapped their hearts onto cobblestone streets. In Barcelona, they danced at a midnight pride after-party, bodies pressed close amid fireworks that lit the Gothic quarter like stars falling to earth. Gianna would trace the freckles on Valentina's shoulders, whispering, "You're my compass, Val. North is wherever you are." And Valentina, with her soft laugh like wind chimes, would reply, "Then let's get lost together." But Madrid marked the turning point. They'd splurged on paella at a hole-in-the-wall near Puerta del Sol, laughing over sangria as Valentina confessed her deepest fear, coming out to her parents before graduation. "They love me," she said, twisting her napkin. "But this might break them." Gianna had squeezed her hand under the table, the candlelight flickering like hope. "We'll face it together." Like always. That night, in their cramped Airbnb, they talked until dawn, bodies curled like question marks, sharing dreams of a future apartment with exposed brick and a cat named Echo. The flight home was supposed to seal it, a direct red-eye to Seattle, back to reality, but armed with the courage they'd forged abroad. Gianna's mom, Elena Vasquez, had even surprised her with an upgrade. "First class, baby. You deserve it after surviving my cooking all summer." Elena was the Rock, a U.S. Customs and Border Protection inspector, who'd clawed her way up from immigrant roots in East LA to a badge that commanded respect. Divorced, unapologetically out since her 20s, she taught Gianna to stand tall. The world tries to dim your light, Gianna. Shine anyway. A check-in, everything was fine. Smiles from the attendant, a wink at their intertwined fingers. But security was a different beast. The scanner beeped at Gianna's boots. Too many buckles, too much metal. And then the pat-down turned invasive, hands lingering on her hips, her thighs, as if searching for contraband in her very existence. "Ma'am, step aside," the female officer had barked, her eyes narrowing at the tattoo peeking from Gianna's sleeve. A small heart laced with thorns, inked in Berlin for her 18th birthday. Valentina tried to intervene. "She's with me, officer." But they separated them, herding Gianna into a glass-walled room that felt like a fishbowl. By the time they let her out, the damage was done. Whispers rippled through the line. "Dyke?" In rapid Spanish, the word slicing like shrapnel. Valentina, waiting with their backpacks, had gone pale. Her sundress suddenly too thin against the air-conditioned chill. "What happened?" she'd whispered. But Gianna could only shake her head, the humiliation burning too hot to name. Now at the gate it escalated. The boarding agent, a middle-aged woman with a tight bun and tighter lips, scanned their passports and froze. "Señoritas, there's an issue." She tapped her screen, then looked up with that false sympathy Gianna hated, the kind that masked judgment. "Your appearance raises flags. We can't allow potential disruptions on board. You'll need to reschedule or adjust." "Adjust?" Valentina echoed, her voice pitching high with disbelief. "What does that mean?" "We're just trying to get home." The agent shrugged, her English clipped. "Policies. For safety. Perhaps without the accessories." Her gaze dropped to Gianna's jacket, the pins glinting like accusations. One for trans rights, another for immigrant families, the rainbow the final nail. Gianna's blood roared. "This is bullshit. We're U.S. citizens. You can't just..." "Sir." The agent called for the officer from earlier, and suddenly they were surrounded. Passengers craned their necks, phones discreetly filming. The terminal, a coliseum where their love was the spectacle. Valentina grabbed Gianna's arm, pulling her back. "Gee, don't. Not here." But Gianna couldn't stop. "Different? You mean gay? Is that it? We're too gay for your precious flight." Her voice cracked, echoing off the high ceilings, drawing gasps from a cluster of businessmen in suits. The officer stepped forward, hand on his radio. "Ma'am, calm down or we'll have to." "Escort us out?" Valentina finished, her chin lifting in rare defiance. But underneath, Gianna saw the tremor. The way her girlfriend's free hand clenched into a fist, nails digging half-moons into her palm. This wasn't them. Not the girls who'd skinny-dipped in the Amalfi Sea or hiked the Alps at sunrise. This was fear, raw and American in its export. The belief that borders policed not just bodies but souls. As the officer radioed for removal, Gianna's phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Elena. "Flight delayed. Stuck in customs training. Love you, fly safe." If only she knew. The irony twisted like a knife. Her mother, the enforcer of those very borders, worlds away in D.C., oblivious to the war her daughter was losing. Valentina pulled her aside, into a quiet alcove near the duty-free shops, where the scent of overpriced perfume cloyed the air. "Gianna, breathe. We'll call the airline, file a complaint. This can't be legal." But Gianna sank onto a bench, head in hands. "It's not just the flight, Val. It's everything. Back home it's whispers. Here, it's walls." She looked up, mascara-streaked tears carving paths down her cheeks. "What if we're always too much? Too loud to us?" Valentina knelt before her, cupping her face with hands that trembled but held firm. "Then we burn brighter. For each other." Their foreheads touched, breaths mingling in the space between. A vow renewed in the face of erasure. But as cheers erupted from the gate for boarding, the ache deepened. Home felt farther than ever. Little did they know, the real storm was just boarding its flight. The alcove became their bunker, a fragile island amid the terminal's chaos. Gianna wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her jacket, the denim rough against her skin like a reminder of resilience. "Remember Santorini?" she murmured, forcing a smile. "That cliffside taverna, the way the sea crashed like applause after you read your poem?" Valentina nodded, her auburn waves catching the overhead lights like embers. "To the girl who maps my silences," she recited softly, her voice a lifeline. "How could I forget? You kissed me right there with the whole island watching." It had been magic, salty air, feta crumbling on their tongues, and a love so vivid it painted the whitewashed walls pink. But even then, a local had muttered mariconas under his breath, the slur a shadow they'd laughed off with ouzo shots. Now in Madrid's fluorescent glare, that shadow loomed larger, a preview of the battles awaiting them stateside. "We should call someone," Valentina said, pulling out her phone. "Your mom? She's got pull." Gianna hesitated. Elena was a force, 5'4" of unyielding Latina fire, with a stare that could melt steel. But admitting defeat? It felt like handing over the pin she'd worn since 14, the one Elena had given her after her first heartbreak. Be you brave one. She's in DC for some inspector summit. By the time she hears, we'll be, I don't know, deported or something. Valentina snorted, a spark of her old humor flickering. Deported to where? Narnia? We're Americans, G. This is just bureaucracy being a dick. She scrolled through contacts, pausing at Mom. Her own mother's face stared back from the profile pic, smiling at a Bellevue bake sale, apron dusted with flour. The contrast stung. Elena celebrated Pride with glitter and guacamole. Valentina's parents sent passive-aggressive emails about family values retreats. Don't, Gianna said gently, covering her hand. Not yet. Let's try the embassy line first. The wait on hold was eternal, elevator music twisting their nerves. Around them, families reunited. A toddler squealing into his abuela's arms, suited execs clinking espresso cups. Each reunion amplified their isolation, turning the terminal into a hall of mirrors reflecting what they craved, belonging, unapologetic. Finally, a voice. U.S. Embassy, how may I assist? Gianna explained, words tumbling like dominoes. The pat-down, the denial, the casual bigotry masked as policy. The consul listened, then sighed. Miss Vasquez, I'm sorry. Airlines have discretion on disruptive passengers. Without overt discrimination, our hands are tied. File with the carrier. We'll note it for review. Discretion. Gianna exploded, her free hand gesturing wildly. They're profiling us because we're gay. Isn't that overt enough? A pause then. We'll escalate. Try another flight tomorrow. Safe travels. The line went dead, leaving silence thicker than fog. Valentina leaned against the wall, sliding down until she sat cross-legged on the tile. Escalate. Like we're a complaint form. Her laugh was bitter, cracking at the edges. What if this is it, G? What if the world's just not ready for us? Gianna joined her, their shoulders touching. A geometry of comfort. Then we make it ready. Like you said in that poem. We are the tide that carves the stone. But doubt not, insidious. Back home, Seattle's queer scene was a bubble. Coffee shops with gender-neutral bathrooms, marches where love was liturgy. Yet cracks showed, Valentina's cousin outing her at Thanksgiving, the aunt who stopped calling, and Gianna's job hunt last summer. Barista gigs ghosting after she mentioned her girlfriend. Different was currency, but it devalued fast. As night deepened, the terminal thinned. They pooled euros for vending machine snacks, stale pretzels and warm Fanta. Huddled under Gianna's jacket like a shared skin. Stories flowed to fill the void. Valentina's first crush on her piano teacher, the scandalous notes passed in AP Lit, Gianna's underground zine club, printing manifestos on stolen library paper. Laughter bubbled, fragile as soap but real. Then betrayal slithered in via text. Valentina's phone lit up. Hey Val, it's Mia. Saw your Insta story from the airport. WTF? You two causing a scene? Dad's pissed, says it's embarrassing the family. Come home alone, okay? We can talk. Mia, her older sister, the golden child with the law degree and the husband who mowed lawns on Sundays. The one who'd promised secrecy after Valentina's tearful confession last Christmas. She's bluffing, Valentina whispered, but her face crumpled, the betrayal a fresh wound. Or is she? God gee, what if they're right? What if this us is just too much? Gianna's heart fractured. Mia's words echoed her own fears, the ones she'd buried under bravado. No. Screw that. We're not embarrassing, we're evidence of love that doesn't bend. She pulled Valentina close, their embrace a barricade against the hurt. But as sleep tugged, fitful on the bench, Gianna wondered, how many times could love weather the siege before it surrendered? Dawn broke gray and grudging, the terminal reviving with the shuffle of early risers. They queued for the next flight, resolve hardened like cooled lava. The same agent at the gate, her bun even tighter, scanned them with a smirk. Still here? Persistence is admirable, but rules are rules. We're not leaving, Gianna said, voice steady as rebar. Call your supervisor. The supervisor arrived, a harried man in a vest, consulting his tablet. Ladies, I understand frustration, but our partner airline flags certain profiles, tattoos attire to prevent issues. It's not personal. Not personal? Valentina's eyes blaze, the poet awakening. Tell that to the girls like us who get turned away at borders at hearts. This is personal. This is erasure. He shifted, uncomfortable. Ma'am, if you comply, remove the pins perhaps. No. Gianna's refusal was a thunderclap. Passengers murmured, a small crowd forming. Phones emerged again, capturing the standoff. In that moment Gianna felt exposed, a specimen under glass. But Valentina's hand in hers grounded her, their pulses syncing like a shared heartbeat. Security loomed once more, this time with zip ties at the ready. Time to go, the officer grunted, reaching for Gianna's arm. That's when the intercom crackled. Attention, passengers on Flight 147 to Seattle. Hold boarding. U.S. authorities requesting access. Heads turned. Through the crowd strode Elena Vasquez, badge flashing like a beacon, her suit impeccable despite the transatlantic red eye. Her eyes locked on Gianna's, a storm of maternal fury and pride. Let go of my daughter, she commanded, voice slicing the air. Now. The officer froze, hand hovering. Senora, this is Inspector Elena Vasquez, CBP. And this is an international incident. She thrust forward her credentials, the eagle emblem gleaming. Vespers Hipled. Americana. Inspector. Elena's gaze swept the scene, taking in the pins, the tears, the defiance. To Gianna she mouthed, I'm here. Relief flooded Gianna, hot and dizzying. But as Elena turned to the supervisor, demanding logs and apologies, a deeper current stirred. This wasn't just rescue, it was reckoning. For the borders that divided, the loves that bridged. And in Valentina's wide-eyed stare, Gianna saw the future sharpen. Not despite the fight, but because of it. Yet the betrayal lingered, a shadow on the horizon. Mia's text burned in Valentina's pocket, a promise of fractures yet to mend. Elena's arrival was a seismic shift, the terminal's hum fading to a hush as her presence commanded the space. At 48, she carried authority like a second skin, broad shoulders from years of fieldwork, laugh lines etched deep from nights mentoring queer youth at Seattle's LGBTQ center. Her salt and pepper bun, usually severe, had loosened strands framing her face, evidence of the frantic calls she'd made mid-flight. Embassy contacts, airline execs, a congresswoman ally from her academy days. Nobody messes with my girl, she'd growled to the pilot who'd rerouted her. And now, here she was, a one-woman cavalry. The supervisor stammered, tablet trembling in his grip. Inspector Vasquez, we were merely following protocol. Protocol. Elena's laugh was sharp, a blade honed on injustices she'd witnessed from both sides of the badge. Protocol doesn't greenlight discrimination. These young women are U.S. citizens, traveling on valid tickets. Deny them again, and you're looking at a full DOJ probe. She gestured to Gianna and Valentina, her voice softening like dusk. Mijas, come here. Gianna surged forward, burying her face in Elena's shoulder, the familiar scent of citrus cologne and gun oil grounding her. Mom. How? GPS on your phone, remember? That just-in-case app one made you install. Elena pulled back, scanning her daughter's face with a healer's eye. You okay? They touch you wrong. Just words, Gianna murmured, glancing at Valentina, who hovered uncertainly, backpack clutched like a shield. This is Val. My everything. Elena's smile broke wide, genuine as sunrise. The poet, right? Gianna's told me stories that could fill a book. She extended a hand, pulling Valentina into a quick, firm hug. Welcome to the family, kiddo. Or should I say official upgrade? Valentina blinked, tears spilling anew, not from shame but overwhelming grace. Thank you, Ms. Vasquez. I don't know what to say. Elena. And say you'll let me buy you coffee after this circus. But her tone hardened as she faced the agent. Full refund, rebooking in first class and a written apology. Today. Or I start making calls. The supervisor nodded vigorously, scurrying off with promises. The crowd dispersed, some clapping softly, others slipping away with averted eyes. Security slunk back, radios silent. In minutes, new boarding passes materialized, emblazoned with upgrades. As they walked to the gate, Elena's arm around both girls, the weight lifted, replaced by a buoyant ache. But victory was bittersweet. On the plane, settled into plush seats with complimentary champagne, Elena waved off the flight attendants, for adults only with a wink. The conversation turned inward. The cabin lights dimmed for takeoff, Madrid shrinking below like a bad dream dissolving. Tell me everything, Elena urged once airborne. From the beginning. Gianna recounted it haltingly. The pat-downs violation, the agent's sneer, the alcove confessions. Valentina added layers. The poetry of their fears, the betrayal in Mia's text. She was supposed to be my ally, Valentina said, voice small against the engine's roar. Now? It feels like I'm losing my home before I even get there. Elena listened, nodding, her inspector's mask cracking to reveal the mother, the survivor. Betrayal from family? That's the deepest cut. I know. She paused, sipping her water. When I came out, my own abuela called me pecado. Stopped speaking for years. But Gianna's dad? He stuck around, tried therapy, the works. Love isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's showing up after the blast. Gianna squeezed her hand. You showed up. Always. The flight stretched, a cocoon for unraveling. Elena shared war stories. Raiding a trafficking ring in Tijuana, where she'd smuggled a queer asylum seeker to safety in her own car. Mentoring a trans agent who'd faced apartment pushback. Borders are lines on maps, she said. But people? We're the real territory. Fight for yours. Valentina absorbed it, her notebook emerging from her bag. Pages filled with scribbled verses. Can I write about this? Us. Elena grined. Write it, shout it. Just tag me in the chapbook. Laughter eased the knots, but turbulence hit, literal and figurative. An hour in, Valentina's phone pinged offline. A voicemail from her mom, voice quivering. Valentina Marie, your sister's beside herself. This stunt at the airport? It's not you. Come home, we'll get you help. The word help landed like a slap, implying cure, conversion. Valentina played it on speaker, the cabin's hush amplifying the pain. Gianna's jaw tightened, Elena's eyes narrowed. That's not love, the inspector said flatly. That's control. I know, Valentina whispered, deleting it. But it's my family. The conflict crested mid-Atlantic, waves of regret crashing. Gianna pulled her close, whispering, we choose our family. Elena's proof. But doubt festered. Could love withstand blood's pull? Seattle pierced the clouds at dawn. Evergreens a verdant welcome. Customs was a breeze, Elena's badge parting waves like Moses. But as they claimed bags, Mia waited curbside, arms crossed, her law school poise masking turmoil. Blonde bob impeccable, pearls at her throat. She looked every inch the prodigal's betrayer. Vull. Her voice cracked on the syllable. Valentina froze, Gianna's hand at anchor. Elena hung back, a silent sentinel. You came. Valentina's tone was neutral, a tightrope. Mia stepped forward, eyes red-rimmed. I panicked. Dad was raging about the video, someone posted it online. Family embarrassment, he said. I echoed it. She glanced at Gianna, then away. I'm sorry. It's fear, not hate. Mom's booking a therapist. No. Valentina's refusal was steel. Not a therapist. Acceptance. Mia's face crumpled. Val, please. We're all we have. The words hung a precipice. Gianna held her breath. Elena's presence a steady hum. In that charged silence, the high school parking lot showdowns replayed. Fists clenched, hearts exposed. Betrayal wasn't Mia's alone. It was the system's echo, the world's whisper that love like theirs was negotiable. Valentina exhaled, stepping into the breach. Then fight for us, Mia. Like I fight for you. Covering your bar tabs, lying about your affairs. Mia flinched. Start now. Or step aside. The sisters locked eyes, a lifetime flashing. Shared bedrooms, whispered secrets, the pact to escape suburbia's script. Mia nodded. Tentative. Okay. I'll try. It wasn't absolution, but a seed. As they piled into Elena's SUV, Gianna shotgun, Valentina and Mia in back. The city unfolded. Pike Place's bustle, the Space Needle piercing low clouds. Home reclaimed. But the drama lingered, a undercurrent. That night at Elena's craftsman bungalow, walls lined with photos of Gianna's milestones, a pride flag draped over the mantel, They decompressed with tamales and Merlot. Stories swirled. Valentina reading a new poem, Borders of the Heart, her voice weaving silk from scars. Laughter crested when Elena recounted a botched stakeout involving churros and a drag queen informant. Yet, as midnight told, Gianna and Valentina slipped to the porch swing, stars pricking the Seattle haze. "Today's high tide," Gianna said, head on Valentina's shoulder. "But tomorrow?" Valentina tilted her chin, kissing her softly, chaste, eternal. "We carve deeper." Unseen, Mia watched from the window, phone in hand, texting her parents. "She's home. And she's happy. We need to talk." The betrayal's fracture began to mend, slow as dawn. But drama, true to form, reserved its final twist. Weeks blurred into autumn's palette, Seattle's leaves turning gold, mirroring the tentative thaw in Valentina's family. Mia proved her words, showing up unannounced with coffee runs and dog-eared books on allyship, pilfered from her firm's library. Not perfect, she'd admit over vegan pho at Capitol Hill dives. But trying. Her parents followed suit haltingly. A dinner invite sans sermons, mom's scones arriving with a note. "Proud of your adventures. Love always." No rainbow flags yet, but the silence shifted. From condemnation to curiosity. Valentina navigated it like a tightrope walker. One foot in blood ties, the other in chosen love. Gianna, meanwhile, channeled the airport inferno into action. With Elena's nudge, she filed a formal complaint. Her affidavit a manifesto. Different isn't disruption, it's defiance. The airline settled quietly. Scholarships for queer youth abroad, sensitivity training mandated. News ripples hit local outlets. A Seattle Times op-ed by Valentina framing it as love's layover. When borders meet hearts. Readings packed queer bookstores, fans murmuring. "You too? Icons." Their romance deepened in the everyday sublime. Mornings tangled in Gianna's twin bed, sunlight slanting through blinds as they plotted futures. Community college for poetry slams, then transfers to UW for social work and lit. Afternoons at Green Lake feeding ducks stale bread, debating Audre Lorde versus Ocean Vuong. Evenings at Elena's, where the inspector traded border tales for Valentina's verses, the trio a constellation of found family. But conflict simmered, drama's embers flaring in unexpected winds. It ignited over Thanksgiving, the holiday Elena dubbed Turkey Trauma Day. Valentina's parents hosted a colonial split level in Bellevue aglow with string lights, the air thick with turkey and tension. Mia had prepped them. Be open. Or lose her. Dad, a burly accountant with a mustache like a broom bristle, greeted them stiffly at the door, handshake firm but eyes skittish on their joined hands. Mom fluttered, offering cranberry relish like a peace offering. The table was a minefield. Small talk about whether veering to travels, Dad probing. Spain sounds wild. No trouble. His gaze lingered on Gianna's buzz sides, the fresh daisy chain tattoo on her wrist. A nod to Valentina's favorite bloom. No trouble, Gianna replied evenly, fork pausing mid-bite. Just growth. Valentina squeezed her knee under the table. A Morse code of steady. But as pie circulated, Mom ventured. Val, Mia mentioned. The airport. We worried. For your safety. Safety. Valentina's laugh was gentle but edged. The danger was the denial. Of me. Of us. Dad cleared his throat, napkin twisting. It's just. New. We raised you with values. Love being chief among them? Elena interjected from her seat, her plate pushed aside. She'd come as buffer, fierce in an embroidered blouse. Because that's what I see here. Two young women building something real. Against odds you can't imagine. The room stilled, silverware suspended. Dad's face reddened, mustache quivering. With respect, Ms. Vasquez, you don't know our family. I know fear. Elena cut in, voice velvet over iron. I know choosing silence over solidarity. And I know regret's bitter aftertaste. She leaned forward, eyes locking his. Your daughter's not a phase. She's a force. Honor that, or history honors the cowards. Silence stretched, a held breath. Mia jumped in, voice shaky. Dad, remember when I came home from college, said I was leaving Tom? You fought for me then. Fight now. Tears welled in Mom's eyes, spilling. We will. We want to. Dad nodded, jerky, extending a hand across the table to Valentina.
I'm sorry. Kdo?
For the worry. For everything. It wasn't poetry, but it was progress. A bridge thrown over the chasm. Relief washed the table, toasts clinking with sparkling cider. Laughter followed, tentative. Dad's bad golf jokes, Mom's recipe swaps with Elena. As they cleared plates, Gianna pulled Valentina into the laundry room, the dryer humming a lullaby. You were brave, she whispered, foreheads touching. We were. Valentina's smile bloomed, freckles dancing. Tides and stones, remember? Winter deepened their bond, snow dusting the sound like confectioner's sugar. They volunteered at a youth center, Gianna leading art workshops on identity collages, Valentina facilitating writing circles where teens spilled secrets onto pages. One night, after a session with a scared 14-year-old echoing their younger selves, they walked home arm in arm, street lamps haloing their path. Think we'll make it? Gianna asked, breath fogging the chill. The long haul. Valentina stopped, turning her under a canopy of bare maples. Gee, from Madrid to here we've crossed oceans. What's a lifetime? She kissed her then, slow and sure. The world fading to the press of lips, the promise of tomorrows. Spring brought full circle. A reading at Elliott Bay Books, their chapbook lay over love launching to a packed room. Elena beamed from the front row, Mia beside her, parents in the back clapping loudest. As Valentina closed with a new piece, Ode to the Inspector's Daughter, Gianna joined her on stage, their hands entwining under spotlights. In the afterglow, over churros at a nearby cafe, Elena raised her mug. To borders breatshet loves undeniet. To us, they echoed. The story didn't end in happily ever. Drama's too human for fairy tales. There were arguments, Gianna's impulsivity clashing with Valentina's caution, Mia's backslides testing forgiveness. But each rift mended stronger, woven with empathy's thread. Years on, at their wedding, a backyard affair with fairy lights and Frida Kahlo portraits, Elena officiated, voice thick. You too? You're the proof that different isn't deficit. It's divine. Valentina's parents, tearful in the seats, nodded. Gianna, in a suit blooming with daisies, whispered to her bride, "Compass north." And in the quiet after, as stars wheeled above, they knew love, like tides, carves not to destroy, but to reveal the stone's hidden heart. Humanity's grace lies in the carving.